Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Strip by Sia, your podcast for strippers, sex workers, and all the fancy naked people in between. I am your host, Steph Sia. I'm the host of the show. I've been doing this show since 2019, and I bring on really cool guests from the sex work industry every single Sunday, including this week, which I'm super excited to kind of get into details about who I'm bringing on today. But a little bit about me. I am also a sex worker, and I am a digital content creator. I'm also a stripper. Catch me this week at Shaker's Show Lounge in Surrey, Canada. If you are there, come tip me. And I'm also a former sugar baby many moons ago. You can hear about that on other past episodes. But I'm really not talking about myself because I really don't like talking about myself at all. If you've heard any of my AMAs where I'm solo on the show, it's really awkward. Don't listen to those episodes. But I'm really stoked to bring on today's guest, who goes by the name of Kate Kennedy, and not to be confused with the other Kate Kennedy from the Be There in 5 podcast, who's another I'm like, is it Kate Kennedy from that show? I'm like, what? I didn't know she's a sex worker. Not that one, but Kate Kennedy, who is a LA-based stand-up comedian. She's also a content creator, a porn person, as well as multiple podcast hosts on the Kennedy Assassination, Camgirl Chronicles, and Two Girls, One Mic, the Porncast. Kate, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you so much for having me. And I would just like to say, to be clear, even though that is other Kate Kennedy's real legal name, she was not creating content when I first picked this name in like 2018, 2017 actually. So in my defense, she had not launched her, and I'm sure she gets that all of the time. And is probably really annoyed with me, and I'm sorry, other Kate. I'm a fan of your stuff too. I've also left my curling iron on a lot of times.
Yes. I love that show too. I'm a huge listener of that show as well. I'm just like, Kate Kennedy? Kate Kennedy? What? No. But I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You are a person of many talents, and I am so excited to kind of get into everything. Today with you, we're going to be talking about sex work, obviously, different forms of sex work that you do. We're also going to talk about comedy, which I'm really stoked and hoping to get some laughs out of. And also your activism. Just before we get into everything, I do want to give a shout out to two of the patrons from Patreon. Shout out to Arup Sarkar as well as Justin Erickson, who are on the top tier of the Patreon. And if you haven't already subscribed to that, please do. It's patreon.com/stripbysia. Fan recognition shout outs are on every episode if you're on the top tier. So please subscribe. But going back to Kate. Oh my God, you do a lot of things, girl.
Yes, that's what people constantly tell me. They're like, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go do blah blah blah, and they're like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't have a lot of hobbies. I have bad ADHD, and I throw myself completely into everything. So I'm always off on some and it's always a random thing that I've never done before. Which is kind of also how I got into sex work.
Okay. I mean, you just got to keep life interesting, right?
I've always found in my life, and I don't know if I'm just super blessed or cursed or what this is, but it seems like the things that I need to do, the adventures that I want to go on, just present themselves to me.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm in a place in my life where I'm I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm lost, and I don't know what the next step is. Someone has come along like a magical little fairy and been hey, would you like to do this? And I just say yes, and I'm open to the universe, and I'm willing to throw my life away and move across the country every 3 to 4 years because I get bored. So
I love it. Never a dull moment.
Yeah, thank you. One of the greatest things about sex work is that it allows you to just have all of these amazing adventures.
Totally.
And it has been for me, for sure. I was a year out of college, and I could not get a job in at either of the fields my degrees are in. I have a degree in journalism and a degree in art history.
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, could not get a job. I was in a dead-end relationship. I was doing some lifestyle BDSM stuff. at the time, and I was having a good time with that, and I ended up getting offered a job behind the scenes for a porn studio up in Portland, Oregon.
What? Oh,
Yeah, I had been up
okay.
there for Kink Fest, and they
Cool.
messaged or emailed me like a few months later and were like, "Hey, we met you. We need a new marketing person. Um, would you be interested in a job in this industry?" And I was like, "Yeah, that sounds super
So
fucking fun."
cool. Wow.
Yeah. Um, so I, like, worked up there for, like, a year, and I was, like, a PA, I held the camera, I did the lights, I helped build, like, the bondage equipment that we would, like, lock these girls in, and, like,
So
I coded mailers, I did their social media, did a little of everything, and it was a really fun, like, intro to the
Mhm.
adult industry.
Yeah, really behind the scenes, like, literally.
Yeah. Well, you definitely, especially being in porn, like, you got to see, like, what everyone else was doing. And
Mhm.
so, like, I instantly had, like, met a bunch of people that lived in LA, and I was watching them on sets, and then they had been like, like, "You're also cute, like, if you ever wanna shoot, you can." And, I was like, "Okay, I don't know that I necessarily, want that," like, I wasn't sure, so it was, like, 6 months before I was like, "Okay, yeah, actually, like, I wanna
Let's
be
do
in front
this.
of the camera."
Yeah. Oh my god.
Um
What?
But it was great because I shot my first ever scenes, like, for the company I worked for, so it was just, like,
That's so
around people that
cool.
I hung out with every day anyways.
Well, that's awesome because, like, most people, like, that experience would not happen, and the opportunity would not have been presented to them. So,
Yeah.
oh my god.
Very
Wait,
few
that's
people
so
get
cool.
asked if they wanna join the adult industry.
No one.
Like,
Yeah.
normally you have to, like, when people, like, guys especially be like, "How do I become a porn star?" I'm like, "I have no fucking idea." Like, I literally got offered the job because I have a college degree in this. Like,
That is really
uh
cool, though. That's such a, like, really unique way to get into the sex industry. Like, were you nervous at all? Like, did you have any apprehensions? Because you said it took about 6 months, I guess, until you came in front of the camera. Came in front of
Yeah,
the camera, literally.
I mean, always those I don't even wanna call it nerves, but just I think anyone who decides to get into, especially, like, online sex work, porn of any kind where, like,
Mhm.
your face and body are on the internet forever,
Yep.
um, I think I would encourage anyone to seriously, like, weigh the potential consequences of what that's gonna look like in your life,
Mhm.
so that it was the right decision for me. I'm glad I made that decision. It's not gonna be the right decision for everybody,
Right.
and that's okay. But definitely, like, weighing those consequences and being like, "Is this what I wanna do? Is this gonna be worth it for me?" And for me, it totally was.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I really, waited and was kind of I have to pump my own brakes sometimes because, like I said, I'm a person that just constantly wants to, like, go off on adventures. Um, so I was proud of myself for being like, "Okay, exercise, like, a tiny bit of self-control." Um but, I did that and I worked there for a year. It was a fucking blast, and then I had gone to AVN in 2018 to kinda
Mm.
network with other people, and,
Yeah.
being a producer at AVN is, like, the fucking tits.
Yeah.
Everyone's so nice to you. 'Cause I went as a model the years after that, and I was like, "Oh, this is
It's not the
people
same
not the
experience.
same." Like, no one is, like, sucking my metaphorical dick for trying to get work. I don't know that I like this as much. Um But, no, I went and I, ended up signing with an agency, and I came down to LA and I told the people that I was working for up in Oregon, like, "Hey, this is kind of presenting itself," and
Mhm.
I was already 24, so I was a little older getting into the porn industry.
Oh.
Um, that not that that's older, because there are people that just come in as, like, MILFs also,
Yeah, that too, that's
but
a huge niche.
yeah, huge niche, but that, like, mid-20s, like, kind of bracket is it's not usually when people get in. People
That's
usually get in really young at, like,
yeah,
18 or they wait, and I was but I looked young, so I still, I
you can still play
used to
those parts.
yeah, much like Timothy Chalamet, I've been playing 18 until I was, like, 25. Um,
That's really interesting. I never actually really thought about that. Like, it's almost like, I guess mid-20s is almost like a porn limbo.
yeah, it is, it definitely is.
Weird.
They have a category for it now where it's called, like, babe.
Babe?
They've been trying to push it where it's, like, it's not, like, teen, it's not MILF, it's, like, babe.
Interesting.
Like, you're just, like, a hot girl, like, 'cause it before, like, the, big explosion of, like, internet porn and teen and MILF as, like, the 2
Mhm.
categories, like,
Yeah,
most porn performers were at that age.
right?
Like, a lot of them were just really hot girls in their, like, mid-20s. Um, and then that kind of dried up with the internet, so,
Yeah,
they're
that's
trying to
a good
bring it back. I'm closing in on 28 here, so,
point.
but, yeah, so I ended up coming down to LA and I shot for like a week. I came down and was just like, let me try it out. I got a lot of bookings. It went really well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to move to LA, and packed up my dog. And we came down here in June of 2018. So we've been here ever since.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
Portland versus LA is such a huge, like, stark contrast.
Yeah, very different. I
Movement.
mean, I like the West Coast anyways. I'm definitely like a West Coast person. I
Yeah.
grew up in Colorado.
Oh,
So, yeah, similar vibes all around. Like I also joke I've never as an adult lived in a state where marijuana was illegal. Like Colorado legalized weed when I was 18. It was like the first election I ever got to vote in.
perfect.
Yeah, and I moved from there to Oregon to California.
Wow.
So yeah, I like my West Coast, best coast. But yeah, no,
Agreed.
it's definitely a lot different. I love Portland. Portland's a super cute town.
Yeah, it's
There's a
fun.
lot of stuff I really like about it. Yeah, I love living in Hollywood though. I'm so glad that I've lived in LA in my 20s. Like it's just
Mhm.
that's something I'd recommend to everybody is like if you want to live in the big city, like just go try it.
Do
Like at
it.
least give it a shot because it's so fun. Like it's just so cool to get to be in the center of where everything is happening.
Yeah, literally though, and like such a good location, especially for porn, too. Because I always hear
Yes.
like LA or Miami.
Yeah,
Would be the
it's
best.
all LA or Miami. And then,
Yeah.
like well, now it's changed so much because now, like, it's amazing because I even talk about it with, like, my friends and stuff now when people ask me questions about porn, and I'm like, it's literally I retired in 2020 during COVID from,
Hmm.
like, studio porn,
Right.
just because everything was literally we got back from AVN, COVID started happening, everything was so up in the air. There was a lot of different I mean, this was true of like all industries, like how are we going to do this safely?
Yeah.
There was a lot of just differing opinions, and so I had just told my agent I was like, "Look, I'm staying home till this is all blown over."
Yeah.
Um Thinking it would be like a couple month hiatus, and then 2 years later I was like, "I guess I don't do this anymore." Um
Yeah. Didn't we all think like that? We're like, oh, it's 2 weeks. It's gonna be
It was like 2
done.
weeks. Yeah, I made soup. I was like, "Oh, cool. I'm just gonna, like, go to I went and got a lot of groceries." I was like, "I'm gonna get puzzles, and, this is gonna be really fun." And, it was not, dear
No.
listener. It was not. I was wrong.
It's okay. We all were. So we all like. I mean, even to this day, I like. Yeah, I guess like 2.5 years later, still can't believe it's still like going on. But you know what?
Yeah,
The world
no.
keeps moving, right? And we got to keep pivoting and
Yes. Well, and with all
all
of the
that.
stuff with, like, OnlyFans and online content creation now, like, it
Mhm.
is I mean, I loved doing studio porn. There's something
Mhm.
about that that is so fun, but it felt like an anachronism even before COVID.
Oh,
Like
go into that.
like, making studio porn is such a production,
It is.
literally.
Yeah,
Like,
literally.
there's, like even with, like, because the profit margins now are so, so slim since what they used to be. Um,
Really?
yeah, well, with, like, the advent of free porn, I'm saying that in
Yes.
quotation marks, online, and, moving away from, like, DVDs. I've just started watching, actually, last night, the new Hulu series, Pam and Tommy,
Oh.
about the Pamela Anderson sex tape. And there's a
Oh.
lot of, like and it takes place in the 90s, and there's all these, like, porno people in it, because they're who's distributing this tape, and they're like, "We're gonna hit 3 billion by 1997. Everyone's watching on videotapes."
Oh my
And, like,
god.
it's just so, so different, and so, like, yeah, even doing it here, like, making these real, like, movies with, like, crews and makeup and everything, um, it's, even then it was like, "Wow, it's amazing we're still making these." I think there'll always be a small
Yeah.
market for that kind of super produced stuff, but, like, I think the pandemic and the rise of OnlyFans and everything has really shown that what people really want and will pay for, and from my perspective as a sex worker who makes their living doing this, is that they want that intimacy, they want that connection, they
Mhm.
want just that one girl, like, in her own room on her webcam,
Yeah,
and it's amazing, and I mean, that's great for creators too, because up
totally.
until, like you were saying, recently, you had to live in LA or in Miami.
Yep.
um, Now there's girls that, make 6 figures easily, and they live in Missouri,
Yeah,
and they're just
it's
doing
made
this
it
on their own.
it's made it really, really accessible,
Yes.
to
Yeah, very
more.
accessible, and just the options that you have, how much more flexibility you have when you're just working for yourself.
Yes.
Um, you can create the kind of content that you wanna create on the schedule that works for you. Um, you know, even for me, like when I was performing full time in porn, I was blonde and I was tan and like
Yeah.
that was the look.
Very LA.
Very LA. And yeah, because like I have dark red hair. When I first moved, they were like, you know, we really have brunettes and we have blondes. Like,
No
and like,
space
you
for
know,
redheads.
they like there is, but they're like, you know, it's more of a niche. You won't work as much. And that's totally true.
Really?
Yeah, because they would do like, and there's like a story I tell about this where there was a company that I would work for all the time, New
Mhm.
Sensations.
Okay.
Really liked the directors. I was working for them like a couple of times a month. It was great. And then I just didn't get a booking for them for like 3 months. And I was
What?
like, what the hell? Like, did I do something wrong? Like, are they mad at me? And then like all of the like DVDs that they were making at that point came out. They were making brunette movies.
That's why.
So I couldn't be in them. So it's stuff
Oh,
like that where it's just like it's so dependent on whatever they're shooting or trends, and you might just not be the right person for it, but
wow.
that can like impact your work. And it's
Totally.
not like you did anything wrong at all. They like kept booking me again as soon as they could, but like they don't have a lot of say in who they book either.
Right. I never even thought about that in terms of like different layers of prioritization and like different looks, different trends that are happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like no one ever really talks about that kind of stuff. So thank you for bringing that up and being so transparent about that. That
Yeah.
really that makes me that's really interesting. Like I really feel that could be really frustrating for some people that like quote unquote like don't fit the look.
Yeah. Oh, it's super frustrating. And two, it's like it also impacts a lot of performers of color.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
that, you know, like if you're, you know, Asian and you can only be in like the Asian girl movies, like
Yeah,
it's so weird that that's still a thing.
I
And
know.
we're just like, oh yeah, that's a thing, like in porn.
It's so,
Um,
like, typecasty and, like, just
yeah.
caters to stereotypes and, like, fetishization and, like, bleh, it just makes me feel, like,
Mhm.
icky.
Yeah, 100%. I will say there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in like adult film
Yeah,
that kind of breaks with those kind of tropes, which I'm really glad to see.
yeah,
But yeah, a lot of that kind of porn, yeah, is just like wildly outdated, which is kind of crazy.
yeah.
Um,
It's
but
funny to
yeah,
even think that was, like, a thing before. Well, like, I mean,
yeah,
sign of the times, I suppose?
I guess, yeah. I mean, I really love this whole trend of, you know, people just being able to go online and finding like a person who creates the kind of content that they want to see, that they
Mhm.
like, that they can like, you know, gel with. And yeah, I think I think it's cool because it puts so much more power back in the hands of the creators and
Yeah,
performers.
and the emphasis on,
Um,
like, creativity too.
yeah,
So,
oh, 100%.
I mean, like, going along with, like, the signs of the times, but, like, how was it in terms of, like, you transitioning from full production porn to creating your own content? Was it really hard for you to start that, to kind of get going and to gain momentum or to find people to shoot with? Or how did that all go down for you?
So I've been creating my own content the whole time I was in the industry. So even
Okay.
while I was performing full time, I'd been on OnlyFans since 2017.
Oh, you're one of the
Um,
OG ones. Yeah.
So, like, it was already a thing that, like, while you were doing porn and, like, that was part of moving down here too, is that, you
Mhm.
know, people would be like, "Okay, if you have, like, a professional booking maybe once or twice a week," which is
Mhm.
pretty good,
Yeah.
then the other days, you know, you're still tested, you're in this area where there's all the other performers, so you can shoot your own stuff, you can do content trades, stuff like that.
Oh, fun.
So, I already had a ton of content, already, and a lot of it that I hadn't released, so that was great. So when COVID really, you know, picked up and I started really focusing seriously on OnlyFans, I was in a good position for that because I had literally hundreds of clips and like
Sweet.
thousands of photos.
Nice.
Um, so, but it has been hard in terms of like, because I do talk about this sometimes where people are like, oh, it's so easy. Like, you just take pictures on your iPhone. Like, it's
Right.
so, I'm like, okay, you have to do all of like, I don't, people are like, you can just do, sorry, I'm trying to explain this well. People are like, oh my God, like you look good without makeup. Like you can just do whatever. I'm like, okay, if there's going to be naked pictures of me on the internet, I want to look fucking hot in them. Like, I don't care that I'm naked on the internet. I just want to look good. Like, I'm not posting like a completely undone, unretouched, no makeup selfie online. You will not see that from me.
No.
I have some pride.
In case it gets
Um,
leaked, we want to make sure that we look good.
yes, exactly. Thank you. Exactly. So I'm like, you know, you have to do all of that. And then there's like, I have like a whole room in my house that's just for, you know, like lighting equipment, camera, tripods, like
Yes.
all of this stuff. And, you know, you have to have like, I live in a small apartment with my dog.
Mhm.
So like I would love to have extra room where I could actually like have a room to shoot in. I don't have that.
Yeah.
So like my house has to like be, decently clean so it looks nice. I have to
Yes.
look good. All of the outfits, you have to style all of these shoots. Like you're not just the performer, you're the director, the
Mhm.
producer, the editor,
Yeah.
the marketing. Like you all of a sudden we had to take on like 10 extra jobs.
Yeah, you're a one-woman show.
Yeah, which is a
Mhm.
lot.
A lot of work.
Yeah, it's a ton of work. And also too, even because I also have friends like obviously in the comedy world and just like the internet world who put out different kinds of content or different kinds of content creators. And when I like tell them, like I break down like the minimum output that I have to hit for
Mhm.
like my OnlyFans to continue, like I have a minimum of how many photos need to go out every week, how many videos need to be made. And it's like 10 times the amount of content that they have to put out.
Yeah.
It's
That's
so much more.
incredible work. Yeah, and that's like I've said before in other episodes, like online, like digital work is so much harder in my opinion. So much harder than
Yeah.
in-person work.
Oh, so much harder because you're also self-paced. And like I often joke that I'm like the worst employee and the worst boss I've ever had. Like I am a terrible manager and I'm really bad at managing myself.
Well, it takes like a lot of motivation and for you to just like keep that up because like as you said, it's almost like a 24/7 kind of gig,
Yeah.
right? Like you have to
Well, there's
as
never a
like,
time
come
you
to the
can't
same
be
house.
working.
Yes.
Like if you have your iPhone, right? Like that's the 90% of what I have to do takes place on my iPhone. So if I
Yeah.
have it and I just have downtime, that constant pressure of I should be working
Mhm.
is always right there. And so it's really hard. Like I've had to be very like specific in like taking time off where I'm
Mhm.
like, I am, going on a vacation, I'm going wherever. Like I am not, this is not a work trip. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
Um, because otherwise like the pressure to constantly do it can become so great that then you don't want to do anything and I get like paralyzed.
It's
Um,
it's like two extremes. There's no middle ground ever.
yeah, none. And as soon as you feel like you're caught up and you're like, yeah, I'm doing it, then you're like, as soon as you're caught up, you're behind again.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I completely relate.
it's exhausting. I do love it. I don't want to like ever come off as not being grateful for like the opportunities that I have to do this kind of work. Because it is great. And especially through the pandemic, I've watched so many of my friends really struggle with
Mhm.
finances and everything like that. And I've been so lucky in that that has not been my experience.
Good.
Um, like I've been able to work solidly from my house, be safe,
Yes.
not have to deal with a lot of these things. So I'm really grateful for that. But it is a lot of work.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think it's really great that it's really awesome that you're super transparent about it because like a lot of the questions that we get here is like, how do you get into this? And like, what are your biggest struggles when you start breaking onto an OnlyFans account and all that stuff. So like the more transparent the better because we're not here trying to glamorize this kind of work.
No, like you don't need to. There's already so many fun aspects of it that are fun and cool and glamorous, and I think they're obvious. And
Yes.
so it's like, yeah, I just want people to recognize that it's like it is work. It is a lot of work. And also too, like it's because I mean I also am, somebody that will always like my DMs are always open to like new sex workers or sex workers that have questions or whatever. If
Mhm.
if I seem like the person you should go to for career advice, which means you've exhausted all other avenues. You can ask. Um,
I mean,
I'm kidding.
yeah, we'll
I
definitely
downplay myself.
we'll be plugging, I mean, all of your links and all that
Yeah.
stuff's gonna be in the show
Um,
notes, and we'll plug more things at the end of the show for sure. If you do want to reach out to Kate, if anyone's listening.
I totally can. But my thing with it is too is that like especially on OnlyFans, like it's called OnlyFans. Like
Yes.
you have to have fans first.
Yeah, that's
Like
the struggle.
the whole idea of and like it was kind of I mean this was not coming from sex workers, this was more coming from like civilian non-sex worker friends that I have like over the pandemic because it was that joke of like, oh, guess you're just gonna have to start an OnlyFans.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you know what, you can just sign up and it just prints money, that's it, you don't have to work at all. There's nothing to it. Like it's so frustrating because I had like people asking me that
Yeah.
like and also like friends of mine where I was like, okay, I know you're not meaning to be disrespectful about this,
Mhm.
but like the reason I make money on that or am successful at it is because I also busted my ass for like 3 years prior to that.
Yes.
Like
Say
building up
louder.
a brand, building up a following, building up like content. Like it's not something that happened overnight. I worked really fucking hard for a long time to get there.
Yeah, and people will seem to like tend to ignore that
Mhm.
aspect of it. So which is like super frustrating because a lot of us get those kind of questions a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So, but
and it's like people don't get that it's disrespectful.
yeah, and that's what the really annoying
Yeah.
part, though. It's just like,
It is.
would I ask you about your job? And like,
Yeah. But I wouldn't expect to just be able to walk into somebody else's job and do it.
yeah,
And be really successful at it immediately.
no, that doesn't ever
Like,
happen.
no, that's not a thing. There's like a ton of jobs that I would be super bad at and should not assume that I could do that with.
Well,
But
what about like your comedian job? How's that been for you?
so I started doing stand-up in 2019. And I was really lucky. I got to start doing it at the world famous Comedy Store here in LA.
Ooh,
And I was on a show there for 6 months, which was super fun and an amazing experience. And I just really loved it. And I was like, okay, I want to do this all the time. So like, and I joke about this too. Like there was a period of overlap where I was doing professional porn during the day and I would do stand up at night.
seriously?
And so, yeah, so I was constantly like running from like shoots to like get to an open mic or get to a show.
Oh my
And
God.
like I would joke that I was like, yeah, I would suck dick all day and like eat shit all night. It was just a ridiculous lifestyle.
That sounds like super tiring.
I like tore my tongue doing a blowjob scene one time, and then I had to like drive to like the Improv, like holding my tongue down so like the blood didn't come out of my mouth and do my set, and I was like lisping.
First of all, how do you tear your tongue during a blowjob?
It was a miscommunication. I was like kind of upside. It was like a rough blowjob website.
Yeah.
And I was like upside down and we had paused for a second and there was so much spit in my mouth and I needed to like swallow it because I was like choking.
Yeah.
And he like pulled out. And so I was like, okay, I have a second. And my tongue was like towards the back of my mouth, like when you're swallowing, you know?
Yeah.
And he wasn't looking stuck, like rammed his dick in there. And so the little tendon that connects the bottom of your tongue to the bottom of your mouth.
Oh my God.
It like tore.
What? Oh
yeah.
My God.
Like all of a sudden they're like, there's blood. And he thought it was like my tonsils. I was like, no, it's not. Like holding my tongue down because I would like if I picked my tongue up, it was like shooting blood out of my.
Oh my God. That sounds so traumatizing.
I was like, it didn't hurt that bad. It was just like I was like very awkward. And I was like, they're like, well, can you finish? And I was like, not without bleeding.
Can
you come on my face now, please? Let's go over with. Like, I have to get to the Improv.
I can just like picture this happening. Oh my God. Wow. That is
and wild. I tend to be very chill in those kind of situations. Like I'm just like, okay, this happened, whatever. Like, let's move on. And like everyone else around me is like freaking out. I'm like, it's fine. Let's go over with. I have other things to do today.
Were you able to do your show in the evening?
Yes, I got some like ice and was like driving. I literally like driving like over like Laurel Canyon like with like ice in my mouth, like trying to get down.
That sounds like a nightmare, but also it's really funny. And I'm sorry to laugh at you.
Well, I think like we were saying earlier is that like this kind of job and a lot of jobs like demand humor. So like when stuff like that happens to me, I literally it's not even for a second where I'm like, oh, this sucks and this is unfortunate. I'm like, this is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
This is
especially
great.
now like you have to like recant the story and it's like freaking like a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I just got a great story out of this. Like I'm not mad at all. But no, it was really fun. I just started doing a lot of shows. Obviously the pandemic kind of put a little bit of a kibosh on that.
Yeah.
But I've still gotten to do some like underground stuff and, you know, different stuff here and there. And like, it's just awesome. Like it's been such a cool experience. I got to bring up Bill Burr at the Improv in October. Yeah, it was like one of the coolest experiences of my life. Yeah. And like just getting to like meet, you know, amazing people and getting to constantly see. So a lot of my really good friends have come from stand up in that world. So yeah. And I think there are two jobs that, I mean, for me, they went really well together.
Okay. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
And also too, like, you know, I think people don't always think about sex work as a stepping stone to other stuff. And I think they should more.
Yeah.
Because especially with like doing stand up is a really, really hard job to do. Especially if you're, because you know you have to like be out like every night. I mean, you're going to mics like every single night. Right. You're out really late. You're trying to meet people and network and stuff. And if you have like a full-time day job doing that, it's it's almost impossible. It's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Super.
So for me, being able to do like OnlyFans and then, basically have my days free
Mm,
to
yes.
write, to do whatever, and then I, have enough money to be able to go out and do these mics or do whatever, because you don't make a lot of money in stand up,
Mhm.
especially when you're new. And so like the ability to just be able to do both of those things, which I think is so rare for someone that like doesn't have a trust fund. Um, like it was great for me, so like, and actually my like former therapist said that to my parents one time too, where they were like, you've thrown your life away doing porn, blah blah blah. And he like stopped. He was like, people do sex work. I was so proud of him in this moment. He's like, people do sex work for all different reasons.
Yes.
People do sex work to get through medical school.
Mhm.
People do sex work who become lawyers, who become executives. He's like, we don't talk enough about this, but for many, many people, this is the way that they get where they want to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, your daughter, and then he goes, your daughter seems like a very well-adjusted, bright young woman who clearly knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck,
Amen to
yes,
that.
thank you. I was like, can I give you a hug? Like,
Is this inappropriate?
yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was it helped me build up like a following online where I could do podcasts, I could do different kinds of content. Like
Yeah.
even right now I'm, thinking of next steps and, where I want to take that. But like I will always have, well, hopefully, unless they shut Twitter down, but like I'll always have that, online following that I can kind of parlay into anything else that I want to do online, whether it's an Etsy shop or safe for work content or podcasts or whatever.
Mhm.
That's been really valuable to me.
Yeah, that's so important. And like as we kind of mentioned earlier too, with like say like building an OnlyFans account, building the following is always like the hardest part, and to find people that are going to support you is always really really tricky. Like
Yeah.
when you embarked in to comedy, how was your support system there, and like what kind of challenges did you go through with that? Because that's hard, and you're very brave for doing that.
Thank you. I'm either really brave or really stupid, and I think it's a healthy combination of the two. Um, no, mine was great. I mean, so part of my background, like my journalism degree is specifically in advertising with like a focus on digital brand strategy,
Okay.
and social media management. So that's like what I did in a previous life. Um, and I used to like run a bunch of social media for Hello Kitty, which was a
What?
fun job in college. Yeah.
That's amazing. I love Hello
Yeah,
Kitty.
no, it was awesome. They sent me this like pink motorcycle jacket from Japan. It was like really cool. Um, yeah, it was so fun. Yeah, so like that's kind of my background. So I already was pretty well versed in like what it takes to build a following online.
Mhm.
And how to do that. And I also went through like I was very specific with the kind of branding that I wanted to do with myself, because I think one, you have to be able to, as a sex worker building this kind of online following, on some level the product is you, is your,
Yes.
and that's true of any influencer, your personality, your looks, your body. So you have to be able to step outside of that and be a little objective,
Mhm.
which has never been an issue for me. Like I don't mind. I can look and be like, oh, I didn't look great that day. Or I could have done that better, whatever. But you have to be able to step outside that a little bit. And then I just went through and like I was a pretty online teenager kid in like the very early days of YouTube and like MySpace.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I remember like seeing people online that were like almost like proto influencers, like before influencer was a term,
Mm,
and thinking like, there's like people like, especially like girls, I guess, that probably like a little older than me that I was like obsessed with.
yes.
I was like, oh my God, I feel like a lot of people have this where like, you're so cool. And like, I wanna be like you. And so I went back through and was like, okay, what was it about those people that I found so compelling
Yeah.
and so attractive? And like I wanted to kind of duplicate that, so it would be like not just like, oh, you're another hot girl on the internet, because if you
Right.
want to play that game you'll always lose.
Yeah. There's
There's
20,000.
always going to be someone hotter.
Exactly.
But what makes you, interesting? What are your like hobbies? I always try to put like the best version of myself out there.
Mhm.
And so honestly, like being able to do that and look at yourself really critically and objectively like that, I think has helped me in a lot of other areas in my life, because it's made me realize like, oh, these are specifically like my gifts or talents. This is what I'm really good at.
Right.
And I can parlay those into anything else I want to do. But being able to like objectively say like, oh no, I'm really good at these things and I'm not as good at these things, um, has helped me even in like finding other kinds of work and in just knowing myself, I guess. So yeah, I like was very specific in how I wanted to build up my following. They've really I love my fan base. They're great. They've been really supportive of all my stand up I do. Like I constantly get messages like, "Are you going to post more stand up on your OnlyFans? I want to see more stand up."
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
so
so
cool.
yeah. So, and they like listen to my podcasts and, kind of have just been really, really awesome. So, yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
That's really, really great. And like, I mean, with your branding for yourself and also like what you studied and stuff too, did all that ever like prepare you for comedy at all? Or was it just like, holy shit, this is like I'm on a different planet kind of ordeal?
I mean, I think in terms of like writing copy or just figuring out, what's gonna work online,
Hmm.
that's a big skill now.
Yeah.
That, is just really valuable in almost every kind of aspect of like business or anything. Everyone needs to be online and have like an online presence now.
Yeah.
So that's been helpful. But as far as like, fitting in or like being in stand up, like most people have been really welcoming, really kind. Like I've never felt like, oh, I had to change who I was or anything.
Hmm.
It's such an island of misfit toys. It's kind of like porn. It attracts, I think, very similar.
Yeah.
Like, there's a weird Venn diagram of like porn people, stand up comedy, and like the WWE.
What?
Or like UFC. Like there's a weird between like porn fighting and jokes. They just attract, I don't know why. They just attract the same kind of people. And I will say there's a smaller like tangential like other circle in there of like circus people.
Oh yeah, I can see that too. Misfit.
I think it just attracts people that like want to kind of live on the margins of society
Hmm.
and are just a little out there and different. And so definitely like my people.
For sure.
Um yeah. So
Like in terms of like trying to blend, sex work and stand up, how has that been received? Like have you ever turned any of like your stories or any of your experiences into material?
oh, constantly.
Yeah.
Like so many of my jokes are about porn and like it's been kind of hard because I've tried to like steer away from that. And it is like having like training wheels because you
Mm.
get up on stage and like people aren't fascinated by porn.
Aren't?
They're like everyone is interested in sex work. They like
Oh
all want to you say porn and people's like ears prick up.
yeah. Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're paying attention and you're like, "Okay, could you pay attention to my other jokes, please?
Yeah.
I have other things to say." Um but yeah, no, I mean, I talk a lot about it and I always just try to do it in like a not even like a shock value kind of way, but just like
Mhm.
I usually the stories from it are so funny anyways
Yeah.
that it's like they just write themselves. So yeah, I've never steered away from it or like not, said that that's what I do or whatever. Because yeah, I mean, also like I'm not ashamed of it.
Hmm.
Like I don't care. It'd be like I know my friends like comedy people will be like, "Is it weird if I watch your porn?" I'm like, "No, like,
No.
go for it. It is on the internet. I literally do not care. Like that it does not bother me at all." Like, um,
When you were like first going into comedy, like did you already know that that was kind of going to be your material, or was that just something that naturally came out?
so the first time I did stand up comedy, I had done a podcast for this guy who ran the show at the Comedy Store, and he knew I was doing improv at Second City.
Hmm.
So he knew I wanted to like be in comedy a little bit, and he's like, "Hey, you're really funny. Like, you can open my show if you want to write 5 minutes,"
Oh,
which
cool.
is a great opportunity. Like that
That's
very rarely happens.
yeah.
And so I was like, "Okay, that sounds awesome." And so then his show was in April, and I had finally gotten booked for my first anal scene.
Hmm.
Like, it took, like, months, like, we had you're trying to get it for premium, whatever, it took forever, and they finally called, and it was supposed to be the Sunday morning after the show.
Oh shit.
And so I had to call him that week, and I was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but, like, I would love to do your show another time, I can't do it this time because I can't be at a comedy club until 2 in the morning when I have to do butt stuff the next day, that's
Yeah.
not how those work." And, he's like, "Okay, yeah, no worries, whatever." And so then it was the show was Saturday night, the scene was supposed to be Sunday, it was Thursday, and I got a call from my agent saying that the director saw my picture and said that he didn't like my face
What?
and that I wasn't pretty enough to be on his site and canceled the shoot.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, and it was the end of the month, so it was like my rent money.
Yeah.
So I'm like freaking out because I've just lost like $2,500.
Yeah.
And I'm like running around my house. I'm like, I'm upset, all this stuff. And then finally I'm like, I calm down because I'm usually, when I freak out, it's like a maybe 10-minute thing.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what's the next step? And so I was like, all right, what do we do? And I was like, I called the guy and I was like, can I still do your show at the Comedy Store? And he's like, yeah, okay.
That's awesome.
I had 24 hours at that point to learn how to write stand-up.
Oh, fuck.
And go do the Comedy Store at like 10:30 on a Saturday night.
Oh my God. This is so nerve-wracking.
So I like Googled how to write stand-up, and then I wrote this whole set about how this guy screwed me over and wouldn't let me do my first anal scene. And so I like did it. I like wrote the whole thing, and like it was funny. It worked, and like it went really well. They had me on the show for 6 more months.
Yay!
And eventually the company found out that I was doing this set all over town, and then they called me and were like, you need to stop doing that joke.
Oh shit.
Please stop. And I was like, are you gonna book me? Because there's a very easy way to make this stop. Like,
I hope they did.
I was like, honestly, I was like, the joke is really funny. I was like, his name is not super pertinent, so I will compromise with you. I will leave his name out of the joke. I'm still gonna do the joke, and also, you really shouldn't do this to people.
No, and so
like,
last minute too.
Yeah, fuck around and find out. Because I will just make up a really mean joke about it if you're mean to me.
I love that.
Yeah, you will end up in my set. This is true for guys I date too. Don't screw me over.
This is so true. Oh my God, you hear like a material goldmine.
I'm like, it will come out. Like I abide by the general life rule of like, if I don't want someone to know that I said something, I just simply will not say it.
Yep.
Like if I, if I say something about someone, I'm perfectly fine with them hearing it. Because that's what I meant. Yeah. So it's like, and I have a big problem with people that will, not like that. But anyways.
No.
Yeah, so my very first set was all porn. I've branched out a little since then. But yeah.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
I just love how you're able to combine the two together and like kind of like make fun of yourself and just like have a good time at it, as opposed to like, we're so used to, well, I don't know if it's still apparent now. I hope it's not apparent now, but like, when comedians tend to like poke fun at sex workers or strippers or
all
like,
the time.
Yeah, like, is that still a thing? And like, how do you feel about that? Because like, I just feel it's like taking a cheap jab.
It's a cheap shot. It's punching down. Like, I have no problem with a joke if the joke is funny.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, yeah, you can punch at me if it's funny. But a lot of times I hear jokes about that where I'm like, it's not even that it's not funny. It's that it's not accurate.
Yeah.
Like, they'll make jokes about porn and I'll be like, that's not how porn works.
No, because I've never even done it.
Yeah, because you don't know. And I'm like, okay. And like sometimes if it's like someone I know, because I've seen like, other open micers, I'll be like, afterwards, I'll be like, hey, actually, because my other thing is that their made up version of what they think sex work or porn is like is not as funny as what it actually is like.
No, and it's like so mundane sometimes too. Like,
yeah, the real story is so much funnier. Like, let me tell you how this actually works and then do the joke like that. Because if it's accurate, I don't care. So yeah, I still get a little bit like, and again, my bigger thing is just not that I'm offended by the joke. I just don't think it's funny.
No.
And I think that's more, what people should be concerned about, is whether or not the joke is funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it is one of those things like, people make fun of it or whatever. But also, I mean, you can make fun of stand-up comedy too, because stand-up comedy is way more embarrassing than porn. So much more embarrassing. I would way rather have videos of my butthole being fisted online than videos of me bombing on a show. That's so much more humiliating.
Have you ever bombed on a show?
Yes, everyone has.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't even imagine.
It's the worst feeling because you can't leave. You're like stuck there for the rest of your time.
Fuck.
And you're just talking to people that don't like you, and you're like, great, this is awesome for me.
20 more minutes to go.
Right?
God, that sounds awful. Jeez.
Yeah. If you kill, it is like the highest high. And if you bomb, it's just the lowest low.
Oh my God.
And I think it's that, extreme. Again, it's people that are attracted to those kinds of extreme feelings.
Yeah.
Which, yes, I mean, same as porn. Like, if it's great, it's great. And if it's awful, it's awful.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I hear you with that. Like, I think what's important in like our line of work, like being a sex worker, I think it's like so important to have the opportunity to laugh at yourself and to like make things light when you can, because you know some parts of sex work can be, how do I say it, like really isolating. I don't know if you've ever
Oh,
felt like that before.
extremely isolating.
Yeah, like and just feeling like no one can relate to me, like especially when I first started sex work, I'm like, no one knows I'm doing this and I can't really talk to anyone about this. Like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's hard. I mean, it's so good to have a community of other sex workers that you can talk to about it.
Yes.
I mean, for so many reasons, like safety reasons and
Mhm.
for, like just in general having someone to sympathize, because it is, I mean, even to the point of like I will tell people like, "Oh, sorry, I have to work today." And they'll be like, "Well, no, you don't. Like, you should do OnlyFans. You can just like
Oh my
do
god.
you, like why can't you hang out?" And I'm like, "No, because there's like a million other things I have to do."
Yeah.
And people not being respectful of that, or just not understanding like what it's like to like, even with like my like, because I have big followings, so like I will put my phone down and like leave it for hours at a time because it's just too overwhelming for me.
It's a
And
lot.
I'll get people texting me like, why aren't you replying?" Like, for my own sanity and mental health,
Yeah.
I cannot be on my phone all the time.
Yeah, for your
Like,
own well-being.
yeah, like I have like almost like 60,000 Twitter followers. Like, I get messages constantly.
Yeah.
Like, and some of them are upsetting.
Oh, I'm
So it's like,
sure.
I mean, not most of them. Most of them aren't like, terrible. Some of them are just annoying, but it's like you have to like I have to be able to walk away from that. And so yeah, I think people just don't always understand. It's something where, yeah, it doesn't make sense unless you've been inside of it.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
my butthole.
I love it. I mean, I guess the last kind of like bucket and area that I kind of want to talk to you about is your activism and like with sex workers and with sex worker rights and stuff too. Because then what I've seen online is that you're pretty passionate about this kind of stuff and really vocal about it too, which like I feel like more people should be able to express how they feel about this. So if you want to go a little bit about that, like go into
Yeah.
it.
Again, I want to just like state that I am in a very privileged position where I'm very lucky to be able to get to speak out
Yes.
on a lot of this kind of stuff because one, I have people that listen, and also two, I've done in-person sex work in the past. I've done, like, we didn't even hit on this, but I've done most kinds of sex work. I've done porn, I've been a stripper, I've done obviously online content, OnlyFans. I was an escort for a while. So I've done
You've done
pretty much
everything.
the gamut, yeah, sex work. But I know there's a lot of people that aren't in the same position that I am or don't have the audience that I do. So I'm very grateful that I have people that are willing to listen to what I say. And I really try to amplify other voices because there are a lot of aspects of sex work that again, it's one of those things where you don't know how it works unless you've been inside of it. And I can only speak to my own like specific experiences in sex work, which are not universal whatsoever. Like I said, like I got offered a job in the industry. I had been to college, finished college first. Like I was an escort, but I was like with a very high end agency. So there's a lot of experiences that more vulnerable sex workers have that I don't, and I try to amplify their voices whenever possible.
Right,
And
and
stay
thank you
in
for
my
that.
yeah, well, somebody said that to me the other day. They're like, one of the things I admire most about you is that you stay in your lane. I was like, thank you. I'm really worried about people yelling at me on the internet.
There are a lot of people yelling at people on the internet. So
And I hate it. I don't like conflict. And so like if I have said like something before that got misconstrued or taken out of context and like it was horrible and I like spent days just like damage control.
no.
Um Yeah, I mean, it was my bad. I said something dumb, and I apologized. And, but yeah, I mean, I really try to speak up for sex workers' rights in general, amplifying other people's voices, and also just like I try to, and I've realized this through comedy and podcasts and just other stuff, the way that people outside of the industry react or treat me, is that I think I'm in a unique position in that I can make it very relatable for people that aren't in it. So it seems like I have this ability to explain it to people in a way that makes sense and make it seem like, sex workers, porn stars are not this like alien species. Like we're normal people with an interesting job, and different responsibilities and different experiences. And I think that I've had a lot of success in that kind of activism. And I really enjoy that, and it means a lot to me to be able to get to do that. Because I figure if I'm seen as more palatable to someone, that maybe then they'll go listen to other people who are, saying the same thing or better things or more things about this kind of issue. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I love getting to do that. I'm a big chattermouth. I'm also really passionate about tenants' rights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've my apartment building here in Hollywood got bought by a slumlord last month. Um,
No. Fuck.
yeah, so I have unionized the entire building.
Good
Um,
for you.
thank you.
That's
It's
huge.
been really fun. We're working with like the local union and just to protect our neighbors, restore services that we need in our building. So we've been fighting that good fight, and it's been really fun. I really love any kind of like activism, community organizing, any stuff like that. I just really enjoy. I like helping people at the end of the day.
I was just gonna
Um,
say, like, that's what it sounds like.
Mhm. Yeah, I love and the ability to I was just thinking about this the other day too, is that I think when I was younger and I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do or be, I spent too much time worrying about being good at what I wanted to be
Okay.
versus looking at what I'm good at and what I like doing, and also recognizing that usually the things that you like are the things that you're good at.
Yes.
And you can, again, parlay those into anything you want to do. So it's really just looking at, I have this basic set of skills and anything else you can learn, but your like innate talents and abilities and being able to use those to help other people, I think is just like my favorite thing. I know that that's what I want to do with
Mhm.
the rest of my life in any kind of way that I can or any sort of scenario I'm in. So,
That's amazing.
but yeah, I just enjoy doing that. So,
That's awesome. Like, that's so good to hear. And I really love your approach with like how you approach like sex worker activism. I think your approach really, really humanizes sex workers, which I think is so important because, so many times we get portrayed in certain ways that we're like,
Mhm.
we're othered all the time.
Yes.
And that kind of perspective needs to stop.
Well, I constantly would get told too, like, "Well, you don't look like a porn star. You
What
don't
is
act like a
porn
porn
like?
star.
Yes.
Or you don't talk." And I'm like, "Okay, but I am." And so if I am, that logic should follow that, like, there are lots of other people that also don't fit into the stereotype that you have of what we are.
Yes.
So, like, yeah, like, we're different people. We're not just this, like, homogenous thing. Like, we're not all exactly the same. Um, yeah. So I don't know, but it's
Oh.
been fun. I like just getting to do all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean, sex work activism and organizing too, I think it's just so important. And it's fascinating to see the way that like attitudes are changing
Hmm.
towards like so rapidly. And also I want to say that I totally called this several years ago
Okay.
when people were like, what are you going to do when like your nudes are online? And I was like, I will bet you money that within 10 years almost everybody's nudes are going to be online. And then OnlyFans happened, and I was like, "Fuck yes, I was right. I just want it to be noted."
You call it.
Yeah, I like it when I can be like, "I was right." I just want that acknowledged. Um,
Totally. Oh,
but,
God.
yeah, so
I think that's great. I mean, like, I think this is a really great way to kind of segue into the Q&A portion because I think we just ended on a really great positive note there. So thank you so much for all of your all of your stories, your experience. Like, just it's been amazing, and I'm just still so amazed at all of the things that you do. Like, so much, so
oh, thank
impressed.
you very much. That's so nice.
You're so incredibly talented.
I never know what to say when people say that. I'm always like, "I'm a piece of shit." Just kidding. Like, that's alright. Thank you. I'm trying to be nicer to myself.
You're a talented piece of shit. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, just a few questions that came in here for the audience, but I guess we'll kind of go into the first question. What was your first inspirational sex worker joke? If you had a inspirational sex worker joke.
Inspirational sex worker joke?
Yeah.
Oh, I was pretty inspired by the whole getting my first anal scene, canceled.
That's
One of my favorite ones is that, it hasn't really impacted my life or anything. My family's very accepting. I
oh,
do have
great.
35 stepdads, and they all live in the San Fernando Valley, so A Father's Day is a bit of a nightmare, but I bought stock in Hallmark, so it's okay. Um,
That's amazing. So good. So good. Have you ever gotten haggled on stage?
Yeah. I've
Ooh,
probably had people say one or two things, like, I can't totally remember. The thing I actually do tell people about, like, stand-up in general is that I think you have to be so egotistical to do it, that
yeah.
even when you bomb, like, I remember how bad it feels to bomb, but, like, mostly I'll remember the one joke that actually hit. So
Mhm.
it's like you remember the good ones much more than the bad.
Yeah.
It's like childbirth, like, if you could actually remember the pain, no one would do it twice.
Right?
Yeah, you just remember the good part.
So good.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have, do you think you'd still be working in porn if it wasn't for COVID? Like, I guess
I
actual
think
porn?
that's a very good question because initially
Mhm.
my plan had been at the beginning of 2020, I had started like way before COVID was happening. I was like, like stand up was taking more and more of my time. I was doing more podcasts and like stuff was really moving forward on that. So I had kind of
Mhm.
talked to my agent and was like, I think this might be my last year, but I was planning on
Oh,
sort of like easing out of it.
yeah.
It wasn't necessarily supposed to be like March 14th and was like, guess I'm done. Um, because I shot the last scene that I ever shot and came home and like that night was when we got like our stay at home order.
Oh my
Um
god.
in California and everything was just shut down and it was a very eerie time.
Mhm.
That week was just it was rainy here. It's very rarely rainy here.
Yeah.
Um, and it was cold, it was gray.
Oh my
And it
god.
was being outside was really freaky. Like people were, moving very fast, like getting in and out of, stores and stuff. And it was just like, yeah, it was everything you see on the news. It was scary.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would have definitely stuck it out through 2020. And then I probably would have transitioned out a little bit slower, but yeah,
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that kind of like really just abruptly halted.
it did.
That's
I wouldn't be I guess to like fully answer the question, I would have retired anyways, and part of it was that had been in my head. I was 26. Like I
Mhm.
turned 26 3 weeks into lockdown in
Mhm.
2020. And so I think when I officially decided, I was like sitting in my bathtub and I was like, I don't want to get my boobs done.
Mhm.
Like, I don't wanna, like, do the whole, like, MILF thing,
Yeah.
and so I wasn't, because it does hit a time where it's like, "Okay, are you gonna, like, get a different surgery?" And you're like I was like, "I'm not." So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I guess
Mhm.
like in the end, it was all kind of like meant to be.
Yeah,
It
it
just
did. I
played
mean,
out.
going way back to what I said at the very beginning is, it seems like in my life, things tend to just kind of happen when they're supposed to, and I've tried to get better at trusting the universe or whatever, because so far it's all, kind of gone my way. So, even when it seems like it's not.
Well, I'm sure there's gonna be more adventures that you're gonna be embarking on and like random things that you'll fall into. So from the sounds of it. So who knows? And I guess the last question here is, with porn being available online, and this person I think is alluding to the quote unquote free porn that's online, where do you think the porn scene will be going?
Um, I think it's gonna continue this move towards, user generated content, independent content creators. I think that we're gonna see a lot more overlap in sex workers creating other kinds of online content. Because I've seen a huge, I mean, you do this podcast. There's a lot of sex work podcasts. There's also sex workers that do YouTube stuff and TikTok stuff. And if you look at the really, really successful porn stars, a lot of them like Lana Rhoades or Mia Malkova, Riley Reid, like they've really transitioned into also being lifestyle influencers. And so I think we're in the age of the influencer, and that will continue. And I like I was saying earlier, like it puts more power in the hands of creators and performers. I think that's great. I think there'll always be some segment of the market for traditional like commercial produced porn.
Hmm.
But I'm excited to see that move towards, and I think it has been moving towards more like there's been like actual movies, that have come out the last few years that are also adult. Um And I think that's really interesting because I would really like to see adult cinema legitimized.
Yeah.
As a real, because it isn't, like we were saying, even with like user generated content, like Camgirls are some of the most creative fucking people on the planet.
Yes, they are.
I have a theory that girls in like middle school that like super decked out their lockers when they first got them, they all became Camgirls. They just love to decorate, put glitter on everything. I say that as a former owner of a very tricked out locker.
There we go. Coming from experience.
I think there's a pipeline.
Wow.
So yeah, and just legitimizing sex work in general, as you know, it's an actual job, an actual career. It's a lot of work. And I think that can only benefit everyone. So yeah.
Totally. Well, this has been such a fantastic conversation. But before I let you go, Kate, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at the OG Kennedy. That's the as in the OG, like original gangster, Kennedy, like the dead president. If you click my link that's in my Twitter bio, it goes to my link tree, which has links to everything that I do. My OnlyFans, if you'd like to subscribe, is, and I believe it's on sale. I think it's free to join right now. Yeah, which it should still be when this episode comes out, is at theogkennedy.com. And I don't have anything currently coming up right now. I'm actually in the middle of going to be moving in the next couple of months. So I'm off on a new adventure.
Yay.
Yeah, so I'm definitely, I mean, stick around. I'm not getting rid of any of my channels or content creations right now. There might be some, new stuff down the pipeline over the summer as I settle into my new life again. But I know I'm going to be producing a new podcast here in the summer, which, yeah, I'm excited about. So.
Oh, okay. We're going to all have to stay tuned. So be sure to hit up those links, everyone. And don't forget, new episodes every single Sunday. Don't forget to like, rate, share, review, and subscribe. Spotify now has a rating system. So maybe you want to rate that 5 stars if you like it. Cool. If you don't, whatever. And it is Strip by Sia on Patreon. Make sure you become a patron. That would be super, super helpful. And that's pretty much it for this week's episode. We'll catch everyone in for another episode next week. Thank you so much, Kate, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks. Bye. You're listening to Stripped by Sia, hosted, produced, and edited by Steph Sia. Music by Ted D. Graphic design by Maria Bellandarama, and photography by Ian Dabbling.